All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Cards and Coffee. With me today is the 9.9 Newsstand, also known as Manu. What's going on, man? How you been?
Chilling, Elusive. Thank you so much for having me. Finally, it's like a long time coming, so I'm very happy to be here. I'm glad that the scheduling worked out, and I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation, man. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise, man. You're someone that I've always appreciated from afar, and your IG and the style, and this. I think we've talked privately a couple times, and we were both
Hmm.
on the Mental Con that Retroverse and True Blue Collectibles hosted.
Yeah, and
So
we didn't get to finish some of our conversations, so tonight
yeah,
will be a nice opportunity to do that, indeed.
yeah, man. So I wanted to open up with why comics for you out of all the other
Ooh.
mediums.
That is actually a really good question because if you take it back to when I was younger, just kind of finding collecting and finding these things that I like, I was pretty much split back then, comics and cards. I can't remember as a child liking one more than the other, but you bring up a really interesting point because as I re-entered collecting here in like 2020 or whatever the pandemic year was, I definitely went comic books first. But if you look at my first ever Instagram post, which may or may not still be up there, I think it is. It's just a desk with one comic book, which is my favorite comic book ever. Amazing, one of them, Amazing Spider-Man 363, and it's just my childhood copy on the desk, and then there's a bunch of Marvel cards around it, my favorite, and those are all like my PC from when I was younger. So even when I first started that page, there was that blend of both. But I think once I dove into the community, I recognized that the comic book community was a more engaged, more robust community where there was more to do, right? I quickly learned about CGC and CBCS. I quickly started learning about grading books. And it was just a larger market. There was more of a presence. There was more of an audience, more of a community, more content. And that's probably why I dove more in that direction than in the cards direction. And that makes a lot of sense, right? If I just went
Yeah.
full force with cards, I might not have been met with as large a community early on. And then I started to ease my way into sharing cards and showing cards. But I had built this base of friends that are comic book people primarily. And so the card thing was slow to turn into this wider reach, right? And CGC hadn't really started talking about comic book cards yet, although I started bothering them pretty early on because I would put pictures of my favorite cards in the stories and bug them, just make jokes, right? Like, when are you gonna let me slab this in one of your things, you know?
Yeah.
And whoever runs their social would always respond and say, "We're working on it. We're working on it." And a year and a half later, or 2 years later, if you will, it did actually happen. So to answer that question, internally, I am split 50-50. I am
Mm.
cards and comics. The art that I love is the art that I love. And but in terms of what I engage with more, it's definitely like 80-20, like 80% comic books or that medium, like 75 to 80% that medium, something with pages, and then the rest of it is cards. But if you ask me as a human being, which side do I pick? I don't. I'm right in the middle.
Yeah, and that makes more sense. Yeah, to your point, definitely the comic market has been more established and it's been
Yeah.
around longer than the cards. I feel like a lot of us in the community are actually building as we speak the card community. It's still
Yes,
very, very in its infant stages, I feel. Now,
it is.
when
Yeah.
when did you take the plunge, and what made you take that plunge into doing this full time? I know you, if you want to share you had a different background. Obviously, you had a different type of job, but what made
Yeah.
you decide to jump into this?
I wanted to get in touch with something that was more satisfying, right? And I didn't know that it was going to be lucrative. I had no idea. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was already about a year into like a personal transition where I was changing my life very intentionally. I was removing people from my life, energies from my life,
Mm,
career paths from my life. You and I, we, like you said at the
yeah,
top of the show, we've had a lot of one-on-one conversation. And there were a few objectives that I was really eager to get to, and one, or whatever the proper phrasing is, I wanted to get rid of bosses from my life. I didn't want to report to anyone. Not, and I say this openly because that's me personally. That's
correct.
not a knock at anyone or nothing. It's just I've always been the sort of person that rejects an authority, and I had to
Yes,
be true to that, right? Because I want to be at peace with myself and I want to be happy. So I had to eliminate that, right? It was very hard for me to just respect an authority figure just because. No, you gotta, what for
Earn
what,
that.
Yeah. And so I rejected that notion, and I worked towards getting rid of bosses, and the entrepreneurial spirit and the independent sort of spirit. It worked out. I was able to establish channels of income, and have my own business, and so on and so forth. And then the next step from that, what I realized was having clients was a lot like having a boss as well, right? Like clients that you have to work with on deadlines and so on and so forth, because you have to satisfy them. They might not renew with you if there's a contract in place. They might not do more business with you, and then of course you want you want the word of mouth. You want them to refer
Yeah.
you to other people. So you still have to appease them and satisfy them, which I still felt like I've still found myself working for other people. And I wanted to work for myself, but I didn't know how exactly to take that second step, the getting rid of clients step. And so I was just trying to get in touch with what made me happy. And then when the pandemic actually hit and the world kind of like, shut down and went into lockdown or whatever it was, I did find myself going through these old boxes of collectibles at my parents' house, right? And that's how the nostalgia of these things never left. Like every now and then I would still, as an adult, walk into a comic book store or a toy store, which there's so few and far between. It's not like there's KB and all that like it used to be, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Shout out to
I
KB Toys for those who forgot about that.
big shout out to KB Toys, man. A mall experience would not be the same without a KB toy store. Like I can still kind of remember like the carpeted floors, the really tight dark aisles at a KB toy store. Like that's just the best stuff ever, right? And so that emotion, those memories is what I tapped into, like so many people did.
Mm.
And once if something has my interest, I'm going to try to learn as much as I can really quickly. So it really only took me like 1 or 2 nights to figure out what the landscape of collecting had become, because I was so far removed from it for so many years in any serious capacity. And I realized, wow, a lot of stuff has gone up in value. There's been the introduction of third-party grading companies, and so there were these new things that I had to start to figure out, but I like figuring out things when I'm
Mhm.
passionate about it. And so that passion woke up rather quickly. And I found myself saying, you know what, I want to spend my time in this space. I want to reconnect with these things. I love this. And this sort of detail oriented, obsessive, compulsive sort of behavior of mine that made other parts of my life difficult, I actually
Mhm.
realized would be a huge benefit in this,
Mhm.
paying attention to all those nuances and all those little details that are just a pain in the butt. And in the real world, they don't mean anything, but in this world, they mean a lot, you
And
know?
to that
And
point, one of the questions, I'm sorry to cut you off, but before I
yeah,
forget, one of
no,
the questions I have for you, based on what you're talking about, is one of the things I've always admired from afar as well is like you've carved your own niche within the hobby of comics, right? And the reason I say that is from that, I'm newer to comics, I'm more
mhm,
heavy into cards, but from the outside looking in, one thing that's reoccurring with a lot of the Instagram accounts that I see with comics is they mainly only show keys. It's
yeah,
a lot
I
of
know.
keys, keys, keys. So what made you, consciously or subconsciously choose, what, I'm going to go a different route when it was already, to your point, already established to just buy keys?
I was just following my gut. It had nothing to do
Mm,
with what the first appearance was. It was, which cover did I love? What
yeah,
did I remember when I was a kid? Like you and I both do the same thing. We see something, if we think it's good, we bet on that, you
yeah.
know?
Hmm.
And maybe it doesn't have as liquid a market as a key does, a key book, a first this, and I like that stuff too, right? That adds a
Yeah.
cool layer of significance, but I'm not limited to that or restricted to that. I really don't care. I mean, I care, but
Yeah.
that's not the end all be all for me. And I always knew that even if something is more niche, even if something you have to find an audience that appreciates it, if you appreciate it, there is an audience that appreciates it.
Yeah.
Just build the content for yourself, and then with intention, and the people that love it will find you, rather than trying to be something to appease an existing audience that might not really be who you are. You might not be able to maintain that over a long term.
Mhm.
Right, 3.5, 3 years in now, I look back and I'm proud of myself, and I say, man, I've shown some real consistency,
Yeah.
and that's, however that comes off, that's just my truth. I've
Hmm.
recognized that recently, and and I can give credit to the fact that it's because I did exactly what I wanted to. I
Hmm.
wasn't trying to do anything else. If I was doing something for someone else, that's the same as doing it for a client or doing it for a boss, and I would bail. It wouldn't
Yeah.
feel natural or organic. I'd get out of there, right? And so and so great question. And to tie that back to conclude the first one I was answering in terms of what made me go full time into this is I didn't realize it was going to be lucrative, but I had a feeling that I could actually do something great here. And I started to establish the audience, not the well, yeah, I started to establish an audience, but at first it was me finding my people, and it was so rewarding, so gratifying, sharing things I loved and kind of writing about them in the way that I wanted to, and showing the pictures in the way that I wanted to. I didn't realize that there was going to be a quote unquote audience for it, right? But they found me and I found them.
Mm.
And so I started establishing relationships. And then one day I was confident enough to make something available for sale on my story, and it sold. And that was kind of an eye opener for me, you know? Like, obviously, there's eBay, but like this was a very personal mechanism for
Mm.
selling. And I was like, oh, wow. And at that point, I think I really dove in, you know, and started grading with the idea of building equity in a collectible and then selling. I became intentional in the selling thing, and it started to work, and I just decided to ramp up. Like, I never want to stop, you know? And so when people ask, like, what do you do? I say, well, like, from my career, I'm retired, if you will. But now I work more than ever because I'm always engaging in the collectible space constantly, but it's not like work.
Yep, it's not
And
the same.
that's it, you know? Yeah.
Another thing, and we've spoke about this before, but I think it's good for other people to hear this. And your perspective is very different. How do you balance? And you might already know where I'm going with this, but how do you balance your PC versus what's available for purchase at any time? I've always,
Very,
yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Very few things in my PC are unavailable. Almost everything is available. But as a contradiction to that, I was doing a live sale with Dave, West Coast Dave Vengers, the other day. And I pulled out one thing because I was in a real selling mood. I pulled out one thing and I was like, you know what? I described it and I said, if anyone wants to give me 600 for it, I should sell it for way more than that. But right now, tonight, if anyone wants to give me 600, it's yours. No one bought it. But after the show, one of the friends that bought a couple of things from me, he DM'd me. He said, man, I'm still thinking about that thing. And I said, we could talk about it whenever, you know where it is. A week later, he hits me. I'm still thinking about that thing. But in that week, I had realized, man, I can't let go of this. There's only 8 of these in the world. I don't know where the other ones are. And for $600, I certainly can't. And I told him straight up, I sent him voice notes. I said, look, man, I'm not trying to raise the price on you. I'm just literally telling you it's actually not for sale. I'm so sorry. And that's not like me. If I say something's
Mhm.
for sale, it's going, or at
Yeah.
least I hope it is.
Mhm.
But I had to change of mind because in my attempt to sell it, like describe it in what I think is great about it, I convinced myself that I shouldn't sell it. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
man, it is really great and it is really special. And the trade-off for $600 just wasn't worth it. So that item is staying in the PC. Um, excuse me, until we don't know when, but it's there. And I don't really make that separation for most items. I'll look through boxes every now and then and I'll just be like, you know what? Had this for a while. It's appreciated in value. Um, let's sell it, you know?
Yeah.
Or if it's something that I think I can do again, I will sell it.
Mhm.
And then I will try to achieve it again, meaning find it raw, get that grade again. And because over the years, I realized, oh, wow, when I was having these grading successes early on, they did feel like once in a lifetime things. But as I continued to do it, I was like, no, 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 I'm capable. I can do this again and again and again. Sell them. If there's profit, if there's
Mhm.
equity, this is funding this journey. Let's keep selling things. And I only sell things that I love, so I'm able to represent them passionately, and I'm super happy about it. And the people that receive them, it makes me so happy when they're happy with the packaging, they're happy with the item, they post them on their story or on their feed. Like, that's a part of me in their collection. I graded that book, I found that book, and now that person's a friend, a connection of mine. And so it feels good even to let go of an item, when it's being let go in that sort of way. But some things I just can't, like I recently found out.
And to your point, it sounds like a little bit, even though, like you said, there's nothing clear cut about it. But what I am hearing is things that are way harder to replace are harder to let go for you. So
if
if it's something that you could duplicate, to your point, you'll do it again. But if it's
Yeah.
something that you feel either you won't come across, maybe in the next 6 months with this thing again, then you're more leaning towards keeping it.
If it seems impossible, it's two factors. It's two things. If it seems really difficult to replace and it seems like this is not the right time to sell it, meaning the appreciation for the
It's not there
item
yet.
is not there yet, that seems like a bad idea. To get rid of something that I can't replace that hasn't been appreciated by the world yet. It seems like you should hold on to that until the money
100%.
catches up to it or you get another one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, also, when you first came in, did you have anybody that I wouldn't say welcomed you with open arms, but did you have any people that helped you out, maybe with questions or information? I've reached out to you a lot of times for advice on certain comics, and one
Right.
thing that you're really great about is I could ask you like a simple question. Well, to me,
Hmm.
it's simple, but
Hmm.
you'll give me like a damn history lesson to go with my
I,
question, which I
I,
appreciate a lot. You're
good.
like,
I'm glad. Yeah.
who did you have anybody like yourself when you came in that was the
Yeah.
same way with you?
I did, and I don't think they realized it. I established some pretty key relationships early on, and one of them that's top of mind, and I think he knows this, but I don't think he knew how beneficial our conversations were early on. His Instagram name is RS Cali, RSCALI, and his name is Andrew. But Andrew's like a mentor, to be honest with you. And he was one of the, I mean, I remember my first 2 or 3 Instagram posts, and we connected, and he had like a private page. He let me into his page. We connected, we started DMing, and we actually connected on 1992 Joe Jusko Marvel Masterpieces first, before any comic books, before newsstands. He's a big newsstand guy, but we connected on that set. He showed me his full Joe Jusko autographed set, every card, and it was my first time realizing that that even existed. And we connected, and we've had really insight. He's helped me with information since the beginning. He's always been like you just described, asking me a simple question and then I just blah blah blah. It's not a blah blah blah. I don't mean that as a knock to anyone.
No,
But
no.
like I would ask Andrew a question and it would turn into robust, passionate conversations. And he had previously written articles on things that were of interest to me, so he would send me links to the articles. I would get to read more of his thoughts. So Andrew's definitely one of those people early on that if it weren't for that relationship, who knows where I would have picked up some of the key formative sort of details that were really beneficial to me and inspiring to me early on. And there are a few other relationships like that,
Mhm.
but that one is a standout relationship. And I got to shout out my guy, Taj, Epic Comicology, who I have a beautiful friendship and relationship with. He presses my books for me, but it's beyond that. He's not a presser. He doesn't offer his services. We have that relationship. We're in the hobby together. He loves the books that I select. We're passionate about the same things. I love his methodology, the way he approaches it like a scientist, because he is an actual scientist. And so that relationship shaped up about 2.5, 3 years ago as well. And when I have a grading success, it's a team effort. That's
Yeah.
Taj and I winning.
I remember you
I'll
mentioned
pick it,
that.
he'll perfect it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
So
yeah, and
that,
that's the,
yeah,
I think you've started to cut you off again. I think you've mentioned him before because I've seen some of the crazy like pressing and cleaning he's done. It's like night and
yeah,
day. Yeah, I remember you mentioning. Now, quick question
dude,
going back to the RS Andrew.
yeah.
Is he not Andrew's PC? This is a different Andrew, or is he one and the same?
Oh no, no, Andrew Post, Andrew. What is I always Andrew C?
Andrew's PC or something like
Is it
that.
Andrew's PC?
I
Yeah,
believe.
that's
I could be
Andrew
wrong.
Post. That's my guy. No, he's new into my life.
Okay.
He is some, yeah, and I had a probably an hour and a half conversation with him earlier this afternoon
Yeah.
about things that we're working on together. He is one of those super important relationships because we just really enjoy each other and enjoy the conversation. But he's somebody that I met maybe 8 months ago, maybe 6, 7 months ago. Whenever he he started to sort of engage with us through the YouTube platform. I
Mhm.
think he had a personal. You know what? If Andrew sees this, Andrew, please. There are two Andrews, right? But
Mhm.
Andrew Post, if you see this and I'm incorrect here, you please correct me. But if I remember correctly, he had a personal page, but obviously had an interest in this community. He was part of this community, and every now and then, I think he would send me photos of something. And I remember saying to him, if I'm remembering correctly, like, dude, I love the way that you see things. I love the way that you take a photograph of them. Maybe a collectible page or something, or maybe he said, maybe I should start a collectible page, and I encouraged it, or in my own way, I was like, I think you should. And
Yeah.
so I don't remember what came first. I kind of remember the story that way, but maybe that's because it makes me feel good to think that I had some part in it. Who knows? But when he started his collectible page, like that's when we became like family, because the way that he shoots things and posts them and talks about them, and the way that he's deeply passionate about things, whether they're keys or not, right?
Hmm.
Whether the things
Hmm.
everyone's discussing or not, that resonated with me. And we became friends immediately. He's one of the few people in the community that I've actually physically hung out with. And I don't really physically hang out with anyone. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
both of
dope.
the Andrews.
Shout out to the Andrew we're talking about. Yeah, shout out to the other Andrew as well. But the first
Yeah,
Andrew I know
yeah.
we're talking about, he has very clean photos. And me and Doom, shout out to the homie Doom. We've discussed it before
Shout
because
out Doom. Yeah, man.
we and they look, and that's part of his talent, right? And to your point, the way he looks at things in his eye for photos, because they look very simplistic, right?
Yeah.
But if you try to replicate what he does,
Hmm.
it's not that easy. Like
Yeah.
all I use is a photo box. But even like I've tried to do that similar style where you could see, it doesn't take hard to dissect what he's doing. He takes a card, he puts something underneath to create the shadow,
Hmm.
but to have no lighting reflecting off of that item,
Hmm. Yeah.
there's just it's very clean. And
Yeah.
again, that's when I found out. We had a conversation before because I found another person who had something what I thought was a similar, but then when you point out, it's like, you know what, it isn't. It is, the idea is, but I think your
Yeah.
exact words was the execution and the presentation isn't the same.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think you're spot on. I think the amount of natural intuition, talent, skill, the idea of how to execute because you've practiced over the years, the amount of whatever it takes to make something look simple and effortless often goes underappreciated because it's so easy to just look at it and enjoy it and not
Mhm.
realize what's making it great. Well, what's making it great is the person and what their life has done for them and where they've come in their journey in design. And he's a designer. And so, it looks simple, but
Yeah.
not everyone can simply pull it off.
And you could see how some of his influence rubbed off even on you. When I personally, at least from my opinion, when I noticed it was when you picked up the Black Suit Spider business card. I was like, that's something that Andrew would have picked up, I feel.
And
Right?
you know what? And he and I, you're right. And he and I didn't even, he does inspire me. And he and I didn't even know that we were both after the same card. That's how spot
Mhm.
on you are. Because after I made that purchase, one day we were on the Marvel show, and we were live, and I think I said, I'm going to pull out something to show something. And I don't remember exactly how it went, but when I showed it, or when he found out that it was that card, he's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't buy that card. I was watching that card, and for some reason, the business card, and for some reason, I didn't bid on it." Hold on, it's right here. This one.
Yeah, it's super clean. Recently, there was a Ramita one that I saw, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a
It's
new line. Go
Andrews
for it.
now.
Oh,
It's Andrews
he
now.
got it. Okay.
Yeah, and that's perfect. That's exactly how that was supposed to work out, man.
Mhm.
The Ramita business card is his. The black suit Spidey one is with me. But regardless, even when he was like, "Dang, I can't believe you! Like, I can't believe I didn't buy it." He wasn't unhappy that I bought it. He was
Mhm.
just like, "Man, I was really thinking about getting that." And the way that I look at it is, it's in the family.
Yeah.
There it is,
Yeah.
right? It's in the family, and he lives in the Bay Area too. So even distance wise, it's only a couple miles away from me. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's dope, man. Yeah, and
yeah.
in that same vein, like you know, when you started your IG page, did you have any influences or did anybody inspire you with the style that you ended up going with the black, hardwood background, the black gloves? Like, who inspired that look? Because I know who inspired my look when I first got into the hobby, but who was
Uh-huh.
it for you that you saw that you're like, man, I would like to? Obviously, you did your own take and you made it
Yeah,
yours, but
sure,
who
sure.
who who did you see that from?
I didn't see it from anyone, but at the same time, everything that we appreciate is just a culmination of our life's worth of inspiration, right?
Mhm.
I've always liked dark. I've always liked cave sort of things. I've always liked cigar lounge sort of aesthetics.
Mm, vibes.
Um, and And so I think naturally that's just what I decided to do, because when I decided to, and you can see through the, the first few pictures on how I got, to me personally, it feels like I got better at it. I learned how to control the environment better, and now it's kind of formulaic for me, and I like it the way that it is. Um, but the inspiration was whatever my inspirations in life have been. There was no one in the comic community that inspired me, because I basically took my first pictures before I even explored the community. But I'm that way,
Mhm.
I respect my opinion, as bad as this might sound, before anyone
More
else's.
than others. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't even look for inspiration. I cater to me, and then I hope it's good, you know?
Yeah.
But you're inspired without even knowing it. You see things
Yeah.
every single day that you take in, and if they resonate with you, they become a part of your arsenal. It is just how it works.
Yeah, and that's why I opened with that, because I know subconsciously, like, I didn't know when I started my IG page the style I was going after, but then I look back, because as you may know, I started with diecast, and shout out
Mhm.
to Lamley Group. So he's someone that's in the diecast community, Hot Wheels, and he
Okay.
takes very clean photos, very similar to mine, but with diecast. And
Got
he's
you.
who inspired me for my look. So that's why I was asking you, because I
Yeah.
saw that and I was, man, now when I started looking back at my IG and then I go back to his page, I'm like, yeah, that's who I picked some of that up from, you know? So shout out to Lamley
Nice.
Group.
Shout
Yeah.
out, and give me the name again so I don't mispronounce it. Landley?
Lamley, Lamley.
Oh, Lamley Group. Shout out Lamley Group.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, inspirations are like that. I can't point to any Instagram page that I have since seen people, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I,
No,
I've
let's
seen,
let's call it what it is. Go ahead, man.
yeah,
We're keeping it real here.
no, I've seen some of the stuff, right? And like sometimes it's people that I know really well, and it's endearing, right? But an interesting thing happened with that, because at first I started to get a little petty about it. Like if I saw someone like try to take the exact same sort of picture,
Mhm.
like the positioning of things. But then you just got to remember, no one can do you the way you can do you. You know,
You know,
people.
shout out to the homie Sergio. To your exact point, I remember last year when a lot of new collectors started coming in. You know, not to put anybody on blast, but a few people reached out to me. Hey, like, what do you use for your photos? This and this and that,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
Sergio would tell
Yeah.
me, "Hey, don't worry about it. You could tell them the recipe, but they don't got the sauce,
Man, Sergio's on point, bro. I'm
right?"
I'm gonna take that from him. You could
Uh-huh.
tell him the recipe, but they ain't
But
got
they
the
don't got the
sauce,
sauce.
man.
You
They
know,
ain't got
and
the
that goes
sauce.
back to,
Oh,
giving props to Andrew. It's the truth. That's why, like I said,
yeah,
I try to do a post like inspired by Andrew, and I was trying to take different angles. I'll show you I'll share with some of those photos later with you, but
yeah,
I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
that's when I got to see, man, it's not as easy as he makes it look. So shout out again to Andrew, man.
Yeah, big shout out to Andrew. I can never stop giving Andrew his props, and I'm never going to, because man, it's just so dope. And then, piggybacking off of what Sergio said, there's this thing that's happening, because our friends, they do ask, man, like, how do you take your pictures, and how do you this, how do you that? But I'm honest with them, and I tell them, like, I I don't know how to tell you how I do it, because when I'm taking a picture, every book requires a little bit of tinkering. If the book is white, it's playing with the lighting differently, and the plastic is playing differently. If the book is black, it's playing differently, and you have to tap different things, adjust different things, move things in accordance to that. So I can't give you the play by play, and also I can't have you see things the way I see things, right?
Yes.
Like, you
Hmm.
know, uh, there's no way for me to tell you how to do it the way I do it. I can just tell you to keep doing things and find your groove. Like, that's really all there is.
It's
And
very
so that's
similar. Go ahead. I was going to say it's
no,
very
please.
similar, by the way, to even, I'm sure you've got this one before as well. Where how do you know when you're looking for something what you're going to pick up? You don't. I don't.
You
I
don't.
can't tell
You
you what
don't.
I'm looking for until I find
No.
it.
You just got to keep looking. And
Yeah.
when it's like, oh, that's it.
Yeah. You just follow
Yeah.
your gut and then go with it.
1000%. And so this kind of series of words, I'm going to get them wrong, even though they're my own. I just don't remember them exactly, and I have them written down somewhere. It's like you inspire. Like, let's say you do something that's unique and good, and no one means anything bad by imitating. They're
Mhm.
taking inspiration,
It's
right? So
flattering.
yeah, exactly. So you inspire, they imitate, they inspire you, to innovate, right? So
Mm,
like you I forget the exact words. There's something else there. I forgot what it was, but basically it's like you do something and you inspire someone to attempt to do it, and that keeps you on your toes. You're like, well, I got to keep pushing forward and moving this needle forward because you people are catching up. They're getting hip to what's
mhm,
going on. Let me let me innovate again. Let me push forward
mhm,
again. And so it actually helps to keep you from becoming complacent. If it feels like,
mhm,
oh, this is becoming predictable or people are doing things similar, let me stay a couple of steps ahead. I pride myself on doing what I do. And
mhm,
so there's plenty of new things that I can try, but I never want to get too far away from what I like. It's always going to be dark, and
mhm,
hopefully it's always going to be that table, because that table has become like a brand. And I've seen friends, ask, like I've had friends ask me like, where's the table from, this, that, and the third, like those sorts of questions, right? It's like you don't got to worry about where the table's
mm.
from. You got to find your table, your
Yes.
thing. And I've seen that happen with our friends' pages where like, we as friends collectively talk about being intentional about the vision and the vision, not the vision. And I've seen their pages take shape in their own way,
Yeah.
and it's like, that's freaking awesome. Like I've seen people discover themselves because I wouldn't let them copy me.
And usually, to your point, by the way, even in as small as the cart community is, at least in the IG side of it, right? I know in the Facebook groups, there's probably 7,000 or so members nowadays. But what stands out usually is people that follow their own style, right? That's why we're talking
100%.
about Andrew. That another one, shout out to VP Ken, right?
Oh,
The
VP,
way he
come
does,
on.
right?
Come on. Yeah.
Because he didn't try to take anybody else's thing. He just went with his own style, what he likes, and he ran with it.
A 1,000%, man. Those are, and some of the names we're naming, these are the people that makes a lot of sense, that they're our closest friends in the community, the people we
Hmm.
respect at the highest regard,
Hmm.
because they follow the beat of their own thing,
Hmm.
and they do it in a way that we appreciate good. If it's good, we dig it,
Yeah.
period. You know? So yeah.
Yeah, and now looking, I think you mentioned you're probably what, 2.5 or 3 years into the hobby, and
Yeah, where
you're
are we?
actually,
Yeah, like 3.5 years, something, 3 years, I don't know, something like that.
yeah. What would you say now? Because I know some things for myself, but what would you tell Manu 3 years ago, and what would you do different if you would have had the knowledge you have
Whoa.
now when you first started? Like, if you could give me some specifics as much as you can. Obviously, if you don't want to divulge some things, you don't have to.
No, no, I'm just gonna have to do a little bit of thinking here in real time. Some of the things that I would tell myself now, I would probably tell myself to do more, even more selling in the height. I did selling.
Mm,
I was selling.
mhm.
When people
Yeah.
were spending those dollars, in my mind, I was like, nope, these things can go, go, go. But I would have done more selling, you know.
Okay.
There are definitely items where I'm still profitable in what I sold them at, but I could have been substantially more had I sold them in 2021 rather than been focused on. That's all, simple things like that. In hindsight, everything makes so much sense. So I should have sold more, or I should have bought even more Wizard number ones, right? And then oh, not to trust so many people.
Mm,
That was a big one. People that I looked up
yeah.
to as like people that were a big part of my life when I was young because they owned the companies that I looked up to, those people
Mm,
became my friends. So I thought. And they only became my peers because I was developing a market that they can profit off of by revisiting some of their warehouses, right? And I thought certain people were supportive of me because they recognized and loved my passion. No, they were actually encouraging me to be passionate and to keep promoting certain things that I was promoting for myself, but they were actually, kind of like giving me more of a push to do it because they had a bunch of stuff to sell into the market that I actually had created. And so I
that
learned some
makes
value.
sense.
No harm was done,
No, of
but I
course.
learned not to take everyone's enthusiasm at face value. And
Mm,
I'm always a very skeptical person. I'm always
yeah.
looking at what's this person's angle. But I let my guard down because I was so excited that I knew these people who, when I was 9 and 10 years old, were a part of my life in terms of creating things that I was enjoying. So that was an important lesson.
Yeah, and on that, I don't, I know this is mainly about comics, but I know you're definitely a deep thinker just by our conversations. To that exact point, man, you know, I've always felt like I'm great at reading people. I'm sure you feel the same way. A lot of it has to do with what you pointed at earlier, which is like trusting your intuition, going with your gut.
Mhm.
And that's what I was going to tell you that's scary. To your point, do you think those kind of people, what is it? Are those people in, obviously you don't have to mention anyone, but my point being is, what makes those people fly under the radar? Is it that your radar was not on, or was it that they're able to bypass that radar? I've always been
We
curious with that because I play a lot of poker as you as well, and I always
Yes.
I always get shocked where, and I'll give you an example where
Yeah.
I'm not involved in the hand, but I
Mhm.
love to see when two big stacks are going to go against each other, right? And they're
Mhm.
great players, at least from my
Mhm.
observation. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to read the hand as they're playing it, right? And I'm thinking, okay, this guy, I'm putting him in the range, I'm putting this guy, and then showdown comes down, and they had nothing of what I thought was happening.
Right. Right.
That
It
always
happens. Yeah.
shocks me, right? Like, how
Yeah.
were they able to deceive me? If I don't know if deceive me is the right
I mean,
word, but
that's
you know
one
what
of
I
the words.
mean,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think there's more than one answer for me personally, but
Yeah.
one of them is sometimes the child in me gets so excited about
Mhm.
what's happening that even though I see the red flags, I
Uh,
ignore the red flags. Much like a relationship, I've got
mhm.
exes that I could say the same thing about, you know?
Yeah.
There was enough to keep me ignoring the things that should have been a dead giveaway at the beginning. And I mean, I catch on pretty quickly, but yeah, I was kind of just blinded by enthusiasm. Some of it was voluntary because even if I had recognized something and I had analyzed it as like not on the up and up entirely, I kind of just ignored it because I was thinking about the personal benefit and satisfaction of being in that group, if you will, or in that
Mm.
connected to people that were connected to people. But I talk about that a lot also, and now I've become even more the sort of person that does not care about relationships for the sake of them. I don't hold on to a relationship because it might have future benefit. This comes up a lot. People say don't burn bridges, and I say burn them. Burn them. If
Yeah.
someone did wrong by you, don't keep them. If someone's energy you don't appreciate, it doesn't matter if you could make money with them later, if they're going to buy something from you later, it doesn't matter. Be more mindful of being at peace now than what some relationship could bring you later. I think too many people focus on that nonsense and they not living for themselves. If I don't like someone, I
Yeah.
don't they're gone. Like I just don't care, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
so but these reminders kind of just have made me more that person. But I think yeah, I think there's a willingness to ignore things because it's so exciting to be in a particular position at the moment. It's almost self-inflicted.
Yeah. That makes sense,
Yeah.
man. That's a good
But
one. Yeah. I've
to
always,
compare
yeah.
it to poker, that would be a little different, right? Because it's not like we would purposely get something wrong at poker. We
Yeah.
want to be right. That just means it was just unusual, whatever the scenario was. Sometimes you play cards with someone that's new to the game and you
Mhm.
can't read them because they don't know what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, that's different, a little bit different, right? You can't try to outplay them because they don't even understand what you're doing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you
So
can't
you
even
have
outplay someone. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. You could manipulate someone that knows the rules, knows the
Hmm.
odds, because you know what they're calculating already. But
Hmm.
someone that has no clue what's going on, it's wild. You have no idea what they're doing, you know?
Yeah, they're just winging it. They don't even know what they're
They're
doing. To your point.
exactly. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. So anyway, stuff like that. There's probably more answers there, but that's the one that came to mind.
Yeah. Now, with artists, what artists do you? I know Bagley is a huge one, right? But
Yes,
McFarlane being another one for you. But what are
definitely.
in your top five? Those being two. I'm assuming those are two in the top five. Whatever would be another three?
So yeah, we're definitely putting McFarlane and Bagley in the top five. I'm putting Sam Keith in there. I love Sam Keith's like gritty. Just Sam Keith is super cool. If we're limiting it to five, Charles Vess.
Charles
So
Best.
we already got McFarlane, Bagley, Keith, Vess. Who would I put in there as the fifth? Give me 1 second. I'm looking around at certain inspirations and I'm thinking who would take the fifth spot. This is interesting. I want to say it doesn't have to be just comic books, right? It could be just my
Oh,
influences in art. I'm
yeah.
putting Jesco in there. That's my five.
Okay.
That's my five. It's McFarlane, Bagley, Sam Keith, Charles Vess, and Jesco. Jesco had a huge influence on me, and I'm happy with that being my top five. And when I talk about Vess, like literally, if I don't know any other artwork except this is so powerful to me. This puts Vess in my top five by itself.
Yeah, that's dope.
You know,
Yeah.
love this book, love this art. I remember when I was young, this was already a sick book. But when I was super young, super fascinated by the clean, sort of bright colors of Bagley and like the kind of like, I don't know, I always describe McFarlane as street. He had the edgy street sort of style, really cool. This was like boring and old to me. I remember looking at this like painted cover thinking, that's a little lackluster. But as I grew up, as I
Mhm.
evolved, as my taste became more
Your
refined,
palette. Yeah.
my palette, this became more and more beautiful to me. So that's my top five.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, and there is always. I mean, I found myself with that as well, where there's a lot of pieces that early on, when I was buying heavy, to your point, I passed on because I didn't really catch my eye too much. But then I go back and some of those pieces are like, wow, how did I miss that? But it's to your point, as you go, you're developing your palette and you're starting to see different styles, and then some things grow on you. Those
Yeah,
are the fun ones for me because some are very obvious. And the obvious
yeah,
ones are the ones you pick up right away. But the ones that aren't, the ones that grow in you, and then you have to go back. That also makes them more special because you sat on them a while. You let it marinate. You
yeah,
didn't just jump on it. But
yeah,
yeah, man. Now going back to some of our first topics, you mentioned some of the pieces that are in the PC, and they're very few. Would you mind sharing a couple of those with me? Like, what are some pieces that currently are not available for sale, and they're very
yeah.
in your
Do
PC?
you want me to physically bring some
Yeah,
of them
if you
out? Some
can.
of them are, no, yeah. I mean, not everything is here, but
Yeah, yeah.
some are here. And I'll bring one of them out. One I would love to, but it's not with me here. Actually, two I would absolutely love to, but they're not with me. But one I'm going to bring out, and you're not going to be surprised what I'm going to bring. So one second.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm still here though. We can still speak. I haven't disconnected or anything.
Yeah, no worries.
But
I
let
do
me get
remember.
into.
I do remember you mentioning though that a lot of your PC is raw, correct?
A lot of my PC is raw, but yeah, like anything that is in my PC that I love that's ungraded, I'm not selling, so it's like very much PC,
Yeah.
and it is raw. But the item that I'm bringing out is graded, and I mean part of its significance is that it's graded. And I'll bring out some other stuff too, but I'm not going to do all my digging right now.
No, no
And
worries.
yeah, and then I'll show you something else really special that I just parted with, and it's one of those things that people say, "How could you have sold that?" And I just sold it. It just hasn't shipped yet. Um, so the PC item that I want to bring out, I'm going to take it out of the bag. It's it's one of my prized possessions. It's my McFarlane and Stan Lee signed. So there's the Stan Lee signature in gold there,
Okay.
right? And there's the McFarlane full Todd in silver, and it's the Wizard One in a 9.8. And so Wizard One 9.8 signed by Stan and Todd. And the way this is PC is because of the offer that I turned down for this. I turned down a lot of money from someone that spends good money with me, and he's become a really good friend, but I turned it down, and I countered at something ridiculous, right? That's how this is PC. Like if it doesn't go, I don't mind. And one day when I do sell it, it's going to be because it was the right choice for whatever reason then. But this book, before all the wizards that are graded now got graded, before the wizard census really changed and the market for wizard really became developed, um, I did a lot of selling of wizards when people didn't know that wizards were a thing that can bring in money. A lot of the first recorded sales and things like that are a lot of my sales of
Yeah.
wizards that I graded or acquired while people were not paying attention. So on the census, there were two blue label 9.8s and there were four yellow label. The census has changed a lot in the last 2.5 years, especially in the last 1 year.
Just out of
But
curiosity, roughly
yeah,
on that note, what have they changed to? Have they 3x, 10x those numbers? Like the blue
It,
label went from 2 to what, roughly?
the blue label, I think, went from 2 to now maybe 16 or 17. Like
Oh, that's not
someone's
too
gonna have to
much.
keep me honest.
Yeah, that's not too
Yeah, I
much,
mean, it's
honestly.
still rare, but it's
Yeah.
not like it was. And the
Mhm,
yellow label, I don't remember where it's at now. I haven't looked in a while, but probably in the double digits. But
mhm,
the SDCC edition
mhm.
went absolutely absurd. It went from 0.98 to like 50 something now
Oof, okay.
as a combination of a blue label and yellow label. And like my numbers might be off here, you know, it's inconsequential for me to remember
Yeah.
them exactly. There'll be a day where I'll do my deep dive again. I'll register all of the new knowledge, and then for 6 months I probably won't do it again. But it's been a while since I've done it because I'm not engaging in the sale of wizards the way that I was a year ago. You know, the
Mm,
market has shifted, and my energies are where it's more beneficial for my energies to be. The wizards that I have currently, they're with me. I sell them. You know, I sold 3 newsstands in the last month, but that wasn't because I was, you know, in wizard mode. It's just what people wanted, and I had them to sell. So they were selling, but they were selling for much higher a year and a half ago. So I probably shouldn't have sold them. Like I sold a 9-4 wizard recently for 400 and something bucks, or maybe 500 bucks. It was a bundle deal. And that same grade in a newsstand, 9-4 newsstand wizard, I had sold a year ago for 1,100 bucks, right?
mm,
Markets change.
mhm.
In any case, when there were only 4 yellow label, excuse me 1 second, I'm going to clear my throat. I'm going to go and
Yeah.
mute. All right, I'm back. When there were only 4 yellow label Wizard One signed on the census, I had acquired this one. This one popped up on eBay, and it popped up at a price that I did do some negotiating, but I almost ruined the deal. I'm not going to tell the whole story. The story's fun, bro. It was such an exciting, scary night. Oh my gosh, this ties into something amazing. I'm going to have to tell the story after I get done talking about this one point. I have to tell the story. But the point is, the fact that this one is signed by Stan Lee right here is something that I really needed to know. Is this the only 9.8 signed by Stan? Because when you look at the census, you see 4 yellow labels, but it doesn't tell you what it is. Unless you have the cert number, you have to type in the cert number, and then
Mhm,
it tells you signed by such and such. Now, 2 of the 9.8s, I had already seen them. I knew they were only
mhm.
signed by Todd. I'm in possession of one of the 4, so I just needed to know that one that I had never seen, that fourth one, is it signed by Stan or not? Like I need to know, do I have the only 9.8 signed by Stan of my one of my favorite things in the world? So I start asking around, asking around, asking around. No one really knew, but really smart people said, I suspect you have the only one. I called CGC one day, got a really nice young man on the phone that was very willing to help in the ways that he could. And I said, dude, look, I'm not asking you to tell me the cert numbers. I'm not asking you to give me anything that is like consequential, like that could harm anything.
Right.
I just need to know, do I have the only one signed by Stan? There's 3 cert numbers I can give you, and we could eliminate those. Mine and the other 2 that I've seen, we could eliminate those. There's only one that I need to know. He said, bro, I can't tell you like the certain stuff. I said, I know, I'm not
Mhm.
asking for that, but you can look at it. I know you can click it, and I know you can see the information. You actually have images of all of them. This is really important to me. And he started to realize how important it was. He said, bro, I'm going to do this for you. We're going to look at every single wizard, and I'm going to tell you everything you want to know. So the first thing he confirmed was that I have the only 9.8 signed by Stan. And so we like celebrated together, he and I. And
That's
I
dope,
think his
man.
name was Justin, to be honest with you. I kind of remember his name being Justin, but I could be wrong. And then he went down the grades, and he goes, also, there's no 9.6 signed by Stan. There's no 9.4 signed by Stan. And I believe it was a 9.2. The next closest was a 9.2. And I said, well, that makes me really happy. Because if it's a 9.2, that means it's got some defects. And I don't think someone's going to, send it to CGC, get it pressed, and turn it into a 9.8. I think I'm going to be forever, rest in peace, the only Stan Lee signed 9.8. So one of my most prized possessions. I love this book so dearly, and the proof is that I haven't sold it because boy, oh boy, could I be making some money off this thing. But
But it goes
I
off
can
to
do that.
the boxes that it checks, right? That you're not gonna. It's impossible to replace. You're not
Yep,
gonna find another one. So
yep,
there you go.
yep. And I absolutely love it. And the amount of money that I'll part with it for, we'll revisit that in 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
you know? And so the story that I wanted to tell, I'll keep it really brief. This thing popped up on eBay. If I get the numbers wrong, it's not going to matter. The story's still going to be the same. 2,500 or best offer. It pops up. I'm obsessive about my eBay searches and keeping up on my saved eBay. You know the game.
Yeah.
I see the thing, right?
That
So
feeling is crazy just to begin with. When you find a blue dot pops up and it's been ages.
Dude, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? 9.8 signed by Todd Stanton? What in the world? But me being the person that doesn't like paying the asking price, I sent an offer, $1,500. I don't know what's wrong with me, right?
Yeah, you're wild, bro.
Yeah. Maybe I even sent I think I sent 1,000. I'll be honest with you. I think I sent $1,000
smack him
offer.
on the face.
Bro, I was tripping, right? And then the guy, for some reason, the universe conspired for this to be mine. The guy messages me in a way that most people on eBay don't. He sends me the message and he goes, I'm going to forget exactly the thing. He said, I've got an offer for $1,400 already, right? And he shows me like this picture of like the $1,400 offer thing, right? And he's like, and I'm convinced. I'm like, oh shoot, he does, right? And he goes, I'm about to send a counter to both of you guys for $2,000. So heads up. And he sends the counter. I
Counter the counter.
He countered the counter, and instead of accepting the counter of $2,000, I sent him a message, not a DM. It's on eBay. I sent him a message. I go, would you take $1,750? Still being a complete idiot. After I sent that message, it occurred to me. I was like, wait a second. There's someone else after this book that made an offer of $1,400, and now they have the same counter I have. They're gonna buy it. I have to buy it. Boom! I hit buy on the 2,000. Paid it immediately. The moment I paid it, you're not going to believe this, dude. The moment I paid it, I got a DM with a picture of the book, okay? And I knew what that picture meant. And guess who it came from? It came from Andrew, RS Cali RS, the only other person in the world that I know as passionate about Wizard magazines as I am. The only other collection in the world that this would have ended up in. And as soon as he sent that picture, I responded, bro, I just bought that. Were you the other guy? And he said, yes, I was the other guy. And it was this moment of like being happy and being so devastated. Like I just took this from my guy, but then I'm like, but I got it. Oh my God. Like it's this,
Bittersweet.
and it's bittersweet, but he's such an amazing guy. He's such a good friend that he was happy for me and at the same time couldn't believe it. He was like, I can't believe I didn't pull the trigger sooner, whatever. And I almost jeopardized the whole thing for myself as well. I don't remember his exact words, but then let me tell you what happened. I get a message from the seller and the message says, did you pay? I don't have the money yet. I said, yeah, I paid. I paid immediately. It's mine. He goes, well, the money's not in my account. I said, dude, you sell on eBay. And funny thing is, I looked at his sold history. I actually bought a raw wizard from him prior that was signed by Todd, but raw, an SDCC one signed by Todd I had bought from him. And I said, dude, I've even bought things from you before. You know how eBay works. You're not going to get paid until at least the tracking is posted. And that depends on if you're in good standings with eBay. You probably won't get paid until the tracking shows delivered on my end. You know this. And he goes, yeah, man, I don't know. Did you pay? And I was like, bro, I paid. He said, look, I really need the money. I mean, not to put him out there like that, at that moment in time, he wanted the money for something, right? Then he goes, right now, I really need the money. And so let's cancel this and let's just do it PayPal. Let's skip eBay. Let's do it PayPal. And I said, bro, do not cancel this. Do not cancel this. I told him literally, pick any. Oh, at this point we had gotten on the phone because he had like my contact information that gets sent to you when you are a buyer of something. So he called me actually. And I'm talking to him on the phone. And I said, dude, do not cancel this. All right. Pick anything in your collection and tell me how much money you want for it. We'll do a separate thing. I don't care what it is. Pick anything worth anything, and I will pay you for that. And I will deal with selling that thing later. Do not cancel this. I'll PayPal you some money for something else. This is a done deal. Stop it. And he goes, all right, I'm going to look into this. Brother, he hangs up, and seconds later, I get the cancellation notification and the $20-something hundred refunded.
Oh.
And I'm upset. At that point, I sent Andrew a message. I said, Andrew, I don't know what's going on. This guy canceled the order. Like, we got to talk. I need to figure out what's happening. So we do a WhatsApp call because he's in Canada.
Yeah.
And we're talking. He goes, dude, what is it? Does he want more money? What's the situation? Like, he's being a really supportive friend. I said, dude, I don't know what's happening. And then the guy calls back again. So I said, Andrew, I got to go. And I get on the phone with the guy again. And he goes, man, I'm so sorry. I, I acted quickly and I did cancel the order. And that shouldn't be something that's not something I should have done. I know you paid. I just don't understand why I had this lapse about how eBay works. He said, you know what? I have to make this up to you. Don't worry about the money. I'll package it up tonight. It's your book and I'll ship it. And once you receive it, just PayPal me the money. Like, it's my bad. I shouldn't have done that to you. I'm sorry. And I was like, what? For real? You're going to ship me the book without me paying? And then I pay you? And he said, yeah, man, just, I feel bad. And I'm like, okay, I'll talk to you in the morning then. And the next morning, he's sending me pictures packaging. He's sending me pictures of the book on the scale at, with the clerk at the post office. And at that moment, I said, dude, I can't let you ship me this book and me not pay you. I'm sending you the money right now. Give me your PayPal information. I trust you. And a few days later, it
Man.
showed up and it's been here ever since. Like, this is over 2 years ago now. And this book has done a lot for me. This book has introduced me to certain people. This book has made for great content. This book has led to, dude, I just feel like it was meant to be honest with you. I feel
Yeah.
like the universe conspired for this to happen. And I'm just really grateful for it. And one day I will sell it, but I'm in no rush. So
You
that's the
know,
whole story.
yeah, thanks, man. That's a great story. It had a lot. It's like a roller coaster, that story. But
Dude, the best ones aren't they? The
yeah,
emotions in this hobby can really be strong.
and to your
Yeah.
point, the point you made last there, which a lot of people, I including myself, if you would have told me this when I first started, I wouldn't have understood this. But a lot of these rare items, they're so rare that as a business, which is what you are, it almost it helps your business just marketing wise, right? Like for just the
Absolutely.
fact that you own it brings attention to your business, which is what's crazy. I would have never understood that before, but it's super cool how some of these collectibles do that for you. Like you own something special and you're known for that. Like to your point earlier, even though you're the 9.9 Newsstand, I would argue personally, at least from what I see from the outside, that you're more of a wizard guy.
I
You're more
love them.
known for
Yeah.
the wizard, right? Than it is for the newsstands.
The Wizard did a lot for me. The Wizard did a lot for me because, as odd as this is going to sound to anyone that wasn't with me for the last 2 years, that didn't see it happen, the Wizard did a lot for me because the people that saw me moving with Wizard realized that I made that market come to life.
Mhm.
Um, you know, People love Wizard from the 90s. Of course, that's why I knew that it was something special. That's one of the reasons that I love it. But no one put it on the pedestal that it deserved to be on.
Mhm.
No one was spending thousands acquiring them. No one was grading them and demanding thousands in return for them. I put my beliefs in what that was into the world. I represented it that way. I spoke about it that way. And I looked for the people that appreciated it in that way. And when those first sales started to hit, and they started to hit GPA and whatever other services report, everything changed. That's when
Yeah.
people started pulling them out and grading them. They're like, what? You could get $1,000 for a newsstand wizard? Yeah, because I did.
Yeah.
You can get $6,000 for a 9.8 direct? Yeah, because I did. And and prior to any of that, I was putting them away. I was the single biggest buyer of raw wizard magazines that the world had ever seen,
Mhm.
and no one knew it was happening. So the people that are aware of that, and those are the only people who I care know, they know, and we talk about it often. And so that did a lot for me because that's the only time, well, on that significant a scale, that I actually can pat myself on the back and be like, oh, the enthusiasm and passion really created a new market for that thing.
Yeah.
And so that people do recognize that and they appreciate that. And so do I. But now it is what it is. And anyone coming into it new, they have no idea that it was like this kid, the 9.9 newsstand, crying all over wizards every day. Like, they don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really do love them.
That's one thing I really love about the collectibles market in general, man. Because in that book, along with other, I'm sure you have other pieces that are similar in that fashion. That people don't understand that it isn't really about the money, because there's a lot of people. I'm speaking for myself. There's a lot of people that are just balling out of control, and they could buy anything.
Yeah,
But there's things that just money can't buy, in that sense, right? Like, to your point, you've turned down a huge offer. Why? Because you value that more than the money.
absolutely.
I feel like I love that about this hobby, that it evens out the playing field, if you will, in that sense,
Hmm.
right? Because not
Hmm.
only just because you have money, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to acquire everything. Sure, there's
Yeah,
a lot of things that you're gonna be able to acquire, but
yeah.
there's some things that you're not.
Dude, if and you're absolutely right. Like, let's say you have, let's say an individual has as much money as he needs to buy anything, and let's say the person that owns the one item that this individual wants also has money. What are you
Mm,
gonna do?
yep.
You can't have it. That person doesn't need to sell it.
Yeah.
That's and that only exists in markets that are emotional in their
Mm,
attachments, you know? And that's the special part of like a collectible market. It's nostalgia and love driven, right?
mhm.
There are a bunch of things you can buy just to check it off your list. Like, you might not have been a Fantastic Four fan, but it makes sense as a collector to have, whatever key book there is for it because it's significant. But your passion isn't there. It's that one thing that you can't have, even if the value isn't there, that you're gonna strive for,
Yeah.
that you're gonna keep knocking on doors for. And so, yeah, I really love that. And obviously I did counter, but my counter was crazy. And even that person that made me the really good offer was like, one day, but you go ahead and
Mhm.
keep it for now.
Yeah, and that's when, right? When the counter is so crazy, that's I don't want to sell.
Yeah, and his exact words afterwards, I'm gonna call your bluff. And
Ooh.
I said, yeah, and I said, man, the amount of money he offered me, and I said, if you send me that, I'm gonna send it right back. I'm not joking with you. And so he knows, but he and I have done a lot of great business together. Even recently, I moved something really nice into his collection, and actually, people don't know I sold yet. See, there's a lot of that stuff too, where sometimes I don't say I sold it just because maybe I don't want the person I bought it from to feel bad that I
Yeah.
sold it or perhaps made money off of it. And so sometimes I don't feel like I'm lying. I just feel like there's certain things that I'm not sharing. Well, it's my business anyway. I don't have to share anything. It's up to me.
Correct.
But there's certain things that have left the PC or the collection that I haven't represented as sold. Because you know me, I like writing sold. I like putting it out there.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
some, yeah, but some things I just keep quiet because it's better. Or I'll be honest, this is a little evil actually. That not evil in a bad way, but there's certain things that I haven't let people know I've sold because people will ask me how much I sold it for, and I'm still actively trying to buy more of those things. So
Mm,
I don't tell anybody
that makes
because then the
sense.
prices will go up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's enough me on this topic. What else we got?
No, I mean that's it, man. I mean, unless you have other things, we could definitely just have an open discussion in general. But those were the
Oh, I
main
want
things that
to.
were on
Yeah.
my mind. Yeah, yeah. Let me
Oh,
know,
I
man.
appreciate it. Well, one of the things I do want to talk about, this is shipping out soon, and this is also something that, like, this is the Malibu Sun Error 9.6, right? And so it's the Error edition. So it has the negative print on the back. The colors are different because I think the black didn't print or the red, something didn't print. I don't remember what. The black didn't print.
So,
And so it has this weird inverted sort of color, which is really awesome looking.
yeah.
And this is extremely rare. This is the third Blue Label 9.6 to be added to the census. There's only one Blue Label 9.8, two Yellow Label 9.8s. The 9.8 of this book last sold in 2021 for $23,000 on Heritage. And I know one of the owners of a 9.8, and I asked him how much he wanted. He said 50 grand. And I'm not a buyer at 50 grand. I'm a seller if I had it for 50 grand, but I want to acquire it a different way. I want to acquire it the way that I acquired this. I bought this book raw, and um, and then I'll keep the story short because it's actually a long one. This book has gone through a lot, but I bought it raw. Got really lucky on eBay one day. Someone that doesn't sell comic books had just one picture, and I always ask when it's a Malibu Sun 13. I always say, "Can I see the back?" And for the first time ever in the thousands of times that I've asked, it was actually the Error. And so I bought it, and it showed up, and it needed a lot of love. You know, it was wavy, had ticks and all kinds of things. We pressed it. Well, first I was like, this isn't going to be, the grade that I want it to be. And I actually attempted to sell it raw for
Mm.
double what I paid for it, because it would still make me decent money, and I move on and find another one. But no one bought it. So then I said, all right, I'm going to grade it myself. So then
And I'm sorry to
I,
cut you off, but is that Taj or your friend helped you with that? Is that an example of
yes,
someone? Okay.
this is absolutely from the beginning to the end of this book. It's all Taj, me and Taj, and I'll tell you, but it's all Taj. So he got it, he pressed it, he cleaned it a little bit, we submitted it, it got a 9.2. Now, the day that I got the email with the grade, I'm actually going to keep it up like this because I like the back. And
Yeah.
the day that I got the email with the grade, I just took a screenshot of that notification from CGC and I put it on my story. And a really good community member, really good friend of mine now, we've had a lot of conversation about books. He took an interest. He said, hey, I need that 9.2 in my collection. And I said, would you like me to price it, or do you want me to make an offer? Do you want to make an offer? I gave him that opportunity. It's not that I wouldn't price it. I just asked him, do you want to make an offer, or do you want me to price it? And he goes, I'll give you 2,700. And I said, a 9.0 just sold for 3,000. And I'm going to put that into perspective. This was a 9.2 at that point, the first time it went in. A non-error 9.2 is like $400 right now, maybe 350 to 450, maybe 500-ish, like something like that, right?
In that range.
And so in that range. And a 9.8 of this book, I've sold for 5,750 at its height, but right now a 9.8 just sold for 4,000, the non-error,
Correct.
right? But the error edition is a $30,000+ book. So that's the difference, and it's way rare. And so when it was a 9.2, he offered 27, and I said, well, a 9.0 just sold for 3, so I'm not going to sell it for less than a 9.0. I want like 3,500, and we settled at 32, right? And I said, okay, well, the book's not in hand yet, right? It's still on its way back to me from CGC. So you don't have to send me no money. Let the book come in. I want to make sure that everything is fine. There's no crack, no nothing. And then we'll do the transaction. So the book comes in, and CGC had this corner of the book crimped into the inner well, bent over. So the thing said 9.2, but inside it was like an 8.0 now. And so I called my guy and I said, bro, this happened. I can't sell you this book. This book has to go back to CGC. We got to work this out. So, he understood, obviously. It would have been really shitty for me to sell him that book. And CGC says, send it. We'll press it. We'll try to retain the grade. And if we can't retain the grade, we'll discuss compensation. So I get the mechanical error. That's what they call it when they screw up. They call it a mechanical error, and they give you the shipping label, yada, yada. And you write ME all over the box for mechanical error, so they know when it gets there. So a week goes by, like it's marked as delivered. A week goes by, business days, 7 business days go by, and it's not on my account. So I call, and I say, hey, I see you guys got this thing like 8-9 days ago. How come it's not on my account? It's a mechanical error. You guys are usually quick with those. And the young lady on the phone says, oh, we sent that to a signature series event. And I was like, no, that's not a signature series book. It needs to be cracked out, pressed, regraded, and hopefully we maintain the 9.2. Like that's not a signature series. So the steps were taken to retrieve the book from wherever it had mistakenly been taken to. But the next day it said shipped. And so I call again. I said, there's no way you guys pressed this book and regraded it and shipped it to me after I just called you yesterday and you finally found it. And then the lady was super nice, but she goes, I have no other information. I can see that it was reholdered. You're going to have to wait for it to get to you and then email me back and let me know what got to you. And sure enough, it got to me, and I was like, yeah, you guys didn't do anything. It's still damaged. You just changed the case. It didn't even need the new case. It needed a new everything. And so then they go send it back again. At that point, man, I started thinking something that I had thought earlier as well. Like I thought, is this a 9.2? This book seems like it can be higher grade. And I started thinking that previously already. But when that second opportunity to revisit that thought happened, when they were like, all right, send it back again. I'm already sending it. At that point, I was like, you know what? Forget their complimentary press. Forget whatever they're offering me. I'm willing to pay for grading again as if it's their first time with it. I don't care anymore. I'm already have a great margin in the book. I called Taj and I said, Taj, and Dave also, Dave was like, man, your gut's really good about these things, man. If your gut's telling it to crack it out and press it yourself, then just follow your gut. Your gut's good. I called Taj. I said, Taj, I'm thinking this is a sign, because if they would have done it right, I would have just had a 9.2 and I wouldn't think about this again.
Yeah.
But I think this book is way better than a 9.2. Let's crack it out. Let's love it some more. And let's just resubmit it ourselves, man. Forget them. And he said, you know what? If that's what you want to do, let's do it. So I sent it in its 9.2 encapsulation. I didn't crack it out, sent it to Taj. Taj cracked it out. Taj cleaned the back cover, did some nice whitening on the back cover, repressed it, recatered to the spine, and said, this is as good as it's going to be. Let's get it to CGC immediately. You know, don't let any opportunity for reversion. Depending on the temperature, you know, certain dents and stuff can come back depending on the climate.
Okay.
And so you want to get it graded immediately. So that's what we did. I said, all right, I'll fill out the order. I usually fill out the order on my end, email him the packing slip, and he ships it to CGC. But it all happens on my account. Well, there was sometimes I don't use my account, but that's for other reasons. But in any case, I did walkthrough, which they call unlimited value now, and it's $150 to grade it, but it's a 2-day turnaround on the grade. And that's what we did, sent it. And they took way more than 2 days to grade it. Every day, Taj is like, where's the grade? Where's the grade? Because he and I both are really passionate about this stuff. You know, when we're waiting for a grade, that's all we could think about, especially when it's I was hoping for a bump to a 9.4. I was hoping it would go to from a 9.2 to a 9.4, and that would have been about $1,000 bump.
Oof.
The bump to a 9.6 was a $3,000 bump, right? Actually, more. I'll tell you how much I sold it for in a second. And so, we get the grade that morning, and I couldn't believe it. A freaking 9.6. If CGC hadn't messed up, I would have
Yeah.
just kept the 9.2 and
Everything
sold it
happens
for
for a
3
reason.
grand. Everything happens for a reason. So then I was like, well, now I don't know what it's worth, because the previous sale many years ago of a 9.6 is 4,000. But now a 9.0 is selling for 3. So this is worth way more than 4. So in my head, I was like, it's worth between 5 and 7,500 somewhere. You know, people would probably, well, the ones on eBay that have high grades, they're asking 10,000, 14,000 for like 9.2s and 9.4s because it's rare, but I don't think people will pay that, right? So like if someone listed this on eBay, they probably ask 15,000 or 10,000, but I just wanted to sell it, you know? So I pulled it out a few nights ago on Dave's live sale, and I just made up a number. I was like 6,500 at best offer, you know, and no one bought it right then and there. But then I negotiated a price rather close to that with someone that buys from me afterwards. So um, I sold it. I don't want to tell the exact amount because it's his business, but it's close to $6,500, you know.
Yeah.
And so that process of going back and forth with CGC definitely made this book more than $3,000 more profitable than it would have been for me, or more than $2,500 more profitable than it would have been. So I appreciate that. And then the other thing, like when we talk about, you mentioned a moment ago, like having a book is not just about selling the book. There's content and that could be made by owning it. There's exposure that you can get by owning
Exposure.
it,
Thank
right?
you. Yeah, that was the word.
This book, with all the ups and downs, made like 7 or 8 pieces of content for me.
Yeah.
I made a reel about it. I made like 10 stories about it. I've talked about it on various like YouTube channels, right? And now the end of the story is that it's sold for close to $6,500 and it's going to ship off to a new collection. And when we talk about how could you sell that, because that's what people said, because this is extremely rare. Well, it's not the end of my journey. Yes, it was my first Error Edition Malibu Sun, but I've got a 9.8 to get to still. I haven't completed what my mission is. I need to find more because this is a 9.6 and that's great. But
Yeah.
I need to check a 9.8 off of my goals list. So I'm fine with selling it, made good money. The collection it's going into is the right collection. That owner, the new owner of this, also has a 9.4 signed. that's really, really extensively difficult to find as well. So he's the right person to care for this for an indefinite amount of time now. That's the collection it belongs in.
Question: what happened to
Yeah.
the original potential buyer at 9.2? What happened to that guy? Did you ever offer it to that guy after it was bumped to 9.6? Just out of
To
curiosity.
be to be honest, no, because he and I have had conversations since then. Like anytime I would post an update on the book, we would enthusiastically talk about it. But the ball was always in his court to say, "Hey, when it gets back, whatever grade it is,
Um,
I'll take it again." Like it just never happened. The first person to initiate the discussion with me, in a serious capacity, is the person that it went to. Plenty of people were like, "Now sell it to me," but
just
not
kidding. Yeah.
yeah, like once they say, okay, give me 7 grand for it, they'd be like, okay, never mind. Like there
Yeah.
was a lot of that, but he definitely, oh, he actually took, if I remember correctly, he made a really big purchase recently, 5-figure purchase on a book.
Gotcha.
So I think he wasn't even really interested at this point because he had just added like a big grail to his collection.
That's
So
dope.
that conversation never went. And the reason he wanted a 9.2 is because he has a 9.2 collection of certain rare books. So it fell into that. The 9.6 didn't even fall into his
His range. That makes sense.
desirable criteria.
Yeah, I've seen some people to that point on IG. I forget because there's a couple Moon Knight collectors, but I forget what the guy goes by. But I noticed just on his IG, which I thought was pretty cool. They're not 9.8s, but most of his collection is comprised of 9.0s, and I just like
Oh,
the uniformity of it. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, man. Oh,
And
shit. Sorry. Oh,
no worries. Another thing I was going to tell you, man, like hearing those, to me, it's a nightmare story from your end about like the pressing and the grading of it all. Like,
yeah.
is that? Do you think your percentage of like errors or issues with CGC is above average, or you think that's about normal like experience for most graders and pressers?
Whatever it is, it's completely unfortunate and it's absolutely ridiculous, right?
Yeah,
Because I'm not a volume grader.
yeah,
I don't do hundreds of books. So if I'm doing some months 5 books, some months 2 books, and I have a high error rate
yeah,
of CGC getting something wrong, that does not reflect well on other people's experience. If I'm experiencing
yeah.
that and I'm
You have a small
submitting at
sample
the high,
size.
a small sample size, and I'm submitting at the most expensive level to submit, like, and I get screwed,
Yeah, what's happening to the
can
other
you
guys?
imagine? And the truth is, I'm vocal. Most
Yeah,
people avoid confrontation. They just eat it. They just take it on the chin.
yeah, no, we're not
They
doing
don't
that.
say nothing about it. And some people they pass it on, which is real bad. Some people will get a damaged book, but the label says something and they'll
Oh,
still sell it. That's horrible, man. CGC puts people in bad positions. I can't do that. My reputation means more to me than anything.
right.
A nightmare to me is having a customer, because a customer is a relationship. It's not just a customer. Having someone receive something from me and then me hearing something negative back from them. That's a nightmare. I have anxiety. I like to be free. I
Hmm.
like to be light. And the only way that I'm light is when someone receives a package from me and their response to me is like, bro, amazing packaging and I love the
Hmm.
book. This was represented better than I imagined. Like
The goal
that's when
every
my
time.
job is done. Yeah,
Hmm.
I anything else I can't do it, man, because I don't feel good about it.
Yeah,
So when CGC deals me a bad hand, I tell them to shuffle up again, man. Like I can't accept it, you
yeah.
know.
What else are we gonna show me, man? I know you had a couple of other ones, right?
Man, there's a bunch of stuff here, but like I
Oh,
don't
I thought you
know.
had one. Oh, because you grabbed a pile. My bad. I thought you had one more.
Oh no, I wanted to show that Malibu Sun error, right?
Mhm.
I really wanted to show that, and I obviously wanted to show my wizard. I would pull out. I'm going to talk about this book, but it's not here,
Mhm.
and there's a reason that it's not here. But I would pull out the Ultimate Fallout 4 9.8 newsstand.
Oof.
That is my single greatest grading achievement. I overpaid for a 9.4 because I saw the potential in it. After tax and shipping, I paid close to $12,000 for the book, a book that
Mm.
sells for $8,000, $8,500. My winning bid that night on that eBay auction, there was a few other savvy people that recognized that it was unpressed and had potential. My winning bid was 10,500. No, 10,700 was my winning bid. My actual bid that I put in was 12,000. But the reason I won it for 10.7 is because the other person going for it put in a max bid of 10.5. So the next increment was 10.7. After tax and shipping, I was at about 11.7. And my goal for that book was to bump it to a 9.6, at worst a 9.6. If it remained a 9.4, I was going to take a $3,000 loss, essentially $3,000 to $4,000 loss, because I would have to sell it for its 9.4 value of between 8 and 8,500. And then if it was a 9.6, I was going to find the right buyer for between $17,000 and $20,000. That's the range that I was going to sell it in. So that was the
Correct.
success I was looking for. I was looking for my first experience with that book to be, a several $1,000 profit, but a really exciting undergoing, right? And I turned every step of that into content. When I made when the book came in, I filmed the opening of the box and I made it a reel, and it was the beginning of the year. It was like January 1st or something. And I said, this 9.4 newsstand will not remain a 9.4 newsstand this year. And I put myself out there. I'm like, man, what if I'm a loser? Like, what if I get this wrong? I've just made myself look like the biggest idiot, right? But I put it out there, and I'm shooting for the 9.6. But when I really started to examine the book, I was like, this book could be a 9.8. And when I really started to talk to Taj about it, I shipped Taj the book, and Taj started looking it over. He said, bro, this could be a 9.8. And I said, let's make it the best we can. Let's not rush it. Take your time with it. I have full trust in your capabilities. Let's make it as perfect as we can, and let's send it. And the non-pressable defects, it is what it is, but they're so minor that I knew it had what it could take, what it took for a 9.8, for a real 9.8. And so we submitted it, and I say this, I prayed for it, I hoped for it, I wished for it, I spoke it into the world out loud, quietly, whispered it, the whole nine, like every day waiting for that grade. I'm just like, I know that could be a 9.8. Oh gosh, I know that could be a 9.8. And the morning that 9.8 hit, bro, I cried, I laughed, like it
Oh
was just
yeah,
like
that's great. What does
it.
that do now? If you had to guess, like
Well,
value wise.
one person, this, and I'm gonna say this is not the value of the book. This is just what the person wanted to sell it for right now. And it's still a difficult book to sell at any price because there's no history. I know a private transaction for the book that people don't know. In 2021, the book sold for it traded hands for $28,000. There's only a handful of them, and it sold for $28,000. Me personally, the book is a six-figure book. I've had many conversations with people, and I'm very hard-nosed about the price on that book. I want six figures for it. I've had people say, I'll give you X, I'll give you this, I'll trade you this plus this. And I've said no to everyone because it's that kind of rare book where I can sell that book 10 years from now for more than what I'm asking for it today. And I'm fine holding it. I'm fine holding it because I'm into it $12,000, and I've got plenty of other things to keep me busy and sell. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
relying on the sale of one book to be my kick. I'm getting my kick selling $50 books, $5,000 books, the whole night. I'm staying busy. I love it.
Yeah.
But this gentleman that successfully graded one out just recently, the most recent one, he advertised it for $60,000 because he wanted to get the sale, and that eBay listing just went down, right? And I hit him and I said, "Does that mean you sold it?" And he advertised it on Elite for 50 grand, and that post is gone now. And he said, the sale is pending. I'm going to fill you in on all the details as soon as it's done. So as soon as it's complete, he's going to call me. But I guess it sold for 50. I really don't know. I won't know until he speaks to me. But that is not the value of the book. That's just what it's sold for today. And it's good to have that reference, because that's a six-figure book, man. And the reason I say that, there's like four of them, okay? Maybe there's five of them. But there's the 1 in 25 variant of
Mm-hmm.
of Ultimate Fallout 4 that everyone talks about. There are 200 of those in a 9.8 on the
Mm.
census, and that book sells between 25 and 40 grand. Like most recently it sold for 28,000. Right before that it sold for 33,000, and the height for that book was 43,000. Let's just split the difference. Let's call it a $30,000 book, right? If there's 200 of those and people are always spending 30 grand on them, there's four, maybe five of these.
Mm.
Why would I consider that a $60,000 book? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
That's a six-figure book. Now, for me to believe it's a six-figure book and for me to find the person to pay me six figures,
Mhm.
well, there's a lot of things that have to fall into place. Someone has to have that belief and have the money.
Yeah.
It's going to sound really stupid what I'm about to say because it's not going to make sense to most people. I did have someone that would have paid me $100,000 for it. I didn't think it was wise for that person to do it, and that person's a friend. So I didn't let it happen, you know? And the way I know that sounds dumb. It even sounds dumb me saying it. But again, the relationship with that gentleman is more valuable to me than this book. And when he goes and makes two, three more $1 million, I'll take $100,000 from him. I won't
Mhm.
feel guilty about it. But the reason I felt guilty was because that's what I say the value is. You're paying me because I'm adamant that that's the value. But what if you give me 100 grand and then someone sends one to auction and it sells for 60? I'd feel bad.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity to buy another one that was a 9.4 with potential, and I flew to Las Vegas to look at it. I wanted to look at it. It wasn't an eBay listing. I told the guy, keep it private between you and I, and let me see it in person. So I flew to Las Vegas, and I was telling my guy who really wants one and was offering me. He actually offered me $104,000 for it. I know it sounds silly, but it's the truth. And he goes, I'm going to make you uncomfortable, and he told me what he wanted to give me for it. But in any case, I said no. And I said, if I get this one in Las Vegas and I'm able to make another 9.8, then I will sell you one at a hugely discounted price. Because if I've got two, I'm not going to be a stickler on six figures. I'm being a
Mhm.
stickler on six figures because it's the only one I got. And where
Mhm.
the heck are they? At the point in time where I was shopping it around or letting people that were contacting me about the book, letting them know that I'm asking six figures, there was not another one at market. The guy that just sold it, good guy, he didn't even have one. He hadn't even accomplished that yet. He just graded that book 3 weeks ago. I did this at the beginning of the year, essentially. So that's why that was my number, and that's why that's still my number. But since I wasn't able to actually sell it in a way that made me very happy, I wanted someone that I didn't have a personal connection with
Yeah.
and who I knew had lots of money,
And it's
who could
purely
afford.
transactional.
It's very, yeah, purely transactional, and they could handle the risk. Like I wanted that sort of situation, and I wasn't able to manifest that situation at that time. But the thing is, I'm actually quite relieved because now we have a sale. I think I'm going to have to follow up and make sure that this sale went through. But now we have a public reference point, which is important to have.
Mhm.
People now know that people are willing to spend tens and tens and tens of thousands on this book. And also, in the meantime, the movie came out, and it's one of the coolest things that's ever happened in Marvel films. There's another movie coming. Everyone loves Miles Morales, and I feel like Miles Morales just becomes more and more significant over time.
Can I
He's,
ask you something that
yeah,
obviously it doesn't help your cause, but just out of curiosity, because again, I'm not a comic guy, but going with, let's just assume, or another sale comes up and it does do 90 or close to the 100K mark, right?
yeah, yeah.
Why would someone spend 100K on this book when they could go buy an AF-15? What does 100K buy you in an AF-15? What grade? Just curious, range wise, maybe if you had to guess.
I think I'm just going to be spitballing. I think 100K probably buys you a 6.5, maybe a 7.0, maybe something
Yeah,
in that range, I think.
yeah. So again, why would someone buy that for 100K versus something more significant like the AF-15?
Um, I think an interesting way to answer that is the person that's in the market at books at that price would have both. I don't think it's
Okay.
one or the other. Why is it one or the other?
That person could
One's,
afford both, is what you're saying.
yeah,
So he probably most
one.
likely has it.
And here's the other thing about it. An AF-15 is the most special Spider-Man book, the Peter
Hmm.
Parker Spider-Man. Like Miles Morales wouldn't exist without that book. No Spider-Man exists.
Hmm.
That's the most important, right? But there's a couple thousand of those spreading the grades.
Hmm.
And when you're in the market for $100,000 one, we'd have to look. I don't know how many 6.0, 6.5. I don't even know if that's the grade you get for 100 grand, but probably in that range. You know, there's going to be a handful of those available at that range. And anytime that if you're a buyer that's looking for $100,000 AF-15, you're going to find one to buy, right?
Okay.
If you're looking for 100,000, if you're looking for an Ultimate Fallout 4, I thought I had it here. I was about to grab it. It's it's this still. Um, if you're looking for an Ultimate Fallout 4 9.8, where?
Hmm.
Where? There's always a Drajevic for sale for 25 or 35,000, the one in 25. There's
Hmm.
always some variation of an AF-15 available. If it wasn't for our friend that just sold his 9.8 newsstand, there wouldn't be one available. There isn't one. And so
Gotcha. So
I think
availability is a lot of the answer.
availability is a lot of the answer. And also I don't feel like it's a decision that one has to make. If you're in the market for $100,000 book, one, you're actually placing value on speculation in a way. Like you're specking
Mm-hmm.
on Miles Morales. You're not specking on the AF-15. That is a blue chip
Steady growth.
grail, steady growth investment piece. Put it away for decades and decades to come. But why would you, if you want both, if you want significant books and you love Miles too, you're gonna want both, you know? And the truth is an AF-15 is easier to attain than a 9.8 Ultimate Fallout 4 newsstand just because there is an established market for AF-15s and
Mm-hmm.
they're always available, where this newsstand is kind of like a mythological book at
Mm.
the moment. It's very interesting. So I think that's my answer, but I understand the question.
Yeah, yeah, from coming from the comics. And yeah, I was gonna ask you as well. Has that ever been a goal of yours, an AF-15?
It is a goal, but it's a weird goal. It's not a goal that I am actively pursuing every day. The way that every day I was pursuing an Amazing Spider-Man 316 Mark Jewelers 9.8 white page, which I just recently, oh, we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I was pursuing every day, looking for one, looking to grade one, looking to find who would be willing to sell me one every day. The Ultimate Fallout 4 9.8 newsstand, I've been pursuing that book for the greater part of a year. I wanted that to be an accomplishment. I'm super glad that I did it. Malibu Sun 13 Error Edition 9.8, I'm actively pursuing that. In the same way, I don't pursue an AF-15. I don't know why. It's probably because I want to do it in a way that most people think is not possible, meaning I want to find one or buy one raw, right? And I haven't gotten into the world of golden age books yet. There's a lot of education that I need still so
Mm-hmm.
that I don't get in big trouble. Like if you buy a raw book for like 25 grand because you think it's going to grade out to be a $70,000 book, but then it has color touch or restoration and you're basically screwed, like that's scary. So I
Yeah.
haven't dove in yet. And also, I'm not much of a retail buyer. I don't want to just be like, oh, here's a $50,000 AF-15 that's worth 50,000. Let me pay 50,000 for it. I just don't work that way. You know,
Yeah.
I want some other journey for the book. And also when I have it, I mean, I'll admit, I want equity in the book. If I have a book worth 50 grand, I want to be into the book like 25 grand or 20 grand,
Yeah,
like
of course.
I'm not, see, I operate off a passion, but I don't have to own all of the things I love. If let's say I've got $1 million worth of stuff, but I paid $1 million for it, that doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
me. It doesn't register with me.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of life you can live for with $1 million. There's a lot of people you can help, or you can bring that million back into your world and flip that million a few times. I
Mm-hmm.
can't I can't just keep looking at the same book forever as much as I love it. I want to engage with something. I want to be in and out of it, pursuing it, hunting it. That's just how I tick, I think. Yeah. But I do want an AF-15, no question. Dude, one of my first offers that I had was cash plus an AF-15. If I remember correctly, it was a 4.5 off-white page AF-15 plus cash was the first offer that I got for my 9.8 newsstand like 4 or 5 months ago. And I was like, that's a good one. I'm going to need you to put an extra $50,000 on this. And then the deal fell apart.
Man, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Manu, man, by the way, just to give you a fun fact, you're definitely been my longest interview ever. So
I'm very happy to be
that,
that, man.
yeah, man, I always enjoy talking to you, man, and I really appreciate you joining me.
Thank you,
I
brother. I
wish you continued
appreciate it.
success, man, and keep doing what you're doing, bro. And again, man, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you so much, man. And I know I can talk, so thank
No,
you
you're
for your
good.
time. And thanks for having me. I'm glad this worked out. But more importantly than this, man, thanks for your friendship. I'm glad that we connected early on. I'm glad that we still communicate. And I'm pretty sure we're going to continue to, man. So real pleasure, real honor. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll have you back on. We'll definitely, this week Doom's unavailable. We'll definitely have you back on with
Yeah,
Doom, and I'm sure he has some great questions for you as well, and other discussions we'll have in the future. But for now, thanks again, man, and have a great night. Appreciate you.
my man. Have a great one. Thank you.